Festwochen Podcast mit Clarissa Stadler und Nada El-Azar. Die Wiener Festwochen danken ihren Hauptsponsoren Erste Bank und Wiener Städtische.
Hello and welcome to the Wiener Festwochen podcast. My name is Nada El-Azar. Today I am joined by a very special guest. He brought a series of plays called The Inequalities to the Viennese stage that are all revolving around the realities of people living on the edge of society. It's of course director Alexander Zeldin. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
So I went to see Faith, Hope and Charity last week, and I was deeply impressed by how all the characters were really transferring their own personal histories, most of them certainly troubled, and how they were caring for each other when no one else would. How did you develop the characters, and were they inspired by real life people you met?
Yeah, so I mean, for that play, it was a long process of about a year, going up and down the UK, kind of looking for, in a way, putting myself in sort of different realities. So I began thinking I'd do a play about flooding, but I thought it was a great metaphor. Mm-hmm. So I went to meet people that had been victims of floods, and I went into their homes and the community centres and stuff. And then it became quite clear to me that I wanted to do a play with a very specific beginning point, which was about a mother against the system. Mm-hmm. That was the basic idea I had. And so then I sort of met a lot of women who'd had their children taken away by the state, and I got very interested in that. And then also I sort of started to dream about a setting as a community centre. So I spent a lot of time in food banks and other such places. And in one of them, I encountered a choir that was taking place in Sheffield, actually. It's an amazing place called Leadless Valley Food Bank, who I became quite close to, and they came to see the show and stuff. And at this place, people come there looking for food and a cup of coffee and a conversation or something. And then there's an opportunity to sing. And there were only like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 people singing, but felt to me like a very alive kind of situation that brought together a lot of different things that I thought would be powerful to talk about, to talk about the state of the world today, but also to talk about a dramatic situation of this mother against the system, because I therefore ended up with 2 mothers. Yeah. Hazel, who runs the community centre, and Beth, who is whose child is being taken into care. And so in a way, all these different strands came together. And so they were absolutely inspired by real people, but also from things that I wanted to talk about myself in relation even to my own family, even though it's from a different social world. Mm-hmm. There's obviously always something in it that's very personal for me. So it's a mixture of different things, but it's big. The theatre for me begins and ends in this relationship to life. Yeah. And I use theatre to get closer to life, not to run away from it.
So, as you mentioned, two of the central female characters in the play are Hazel, who is very nurturing. She's voluntarily working in this community center and cooking for the others. Yeah. And then there's Beth, who is like really impulsive, and she always tries to get it right, but always gets it wrong, kind of. Yeah. Yeah. What do these characters mean to you? Like, because they're so contrasting to each other.
They kind of are, but they also love each other. And I mean, I think that what's interesting about both of them is that they're they don't mean anything. They're very individual, singular people. They're very. I hope you feel certainly they feel to me like real, like they are people. I really, and Hazel's journey is also that I don't want to give away the play, but Hazel is, it looks like she's kind of got everything sorted and she's looking after people, and she spent 25 years putting others first, but actually, is that because there's something in her that is missing? And of course this is what becomes clear. Yeah. And likewise, Beth is, I want the audience to be quite torn about whether or not that child should be with its mother. I mean, I think it probably should, given the right support, but I met so many of these women who were in this terrible situation of being judged on their past. So there was an immediate, a priori kind of thing going on, where people would be assessed according to their background, what happened to them, and all this sort of stuff, and not given the support to be the mothers that they could be.
Yeah, sure.
And so they're very different, but also their friendship I thought was quite original.
Yeah, I think so too. I really liked how there's so much like going back and forth between them. I really like the energy between these two. I wanted to ask you about something else also. I think you chose to put the audience on one level with the stage.
Yeah.
And luckily the restrictions in Vienna just changed before.
Yeah, just before I arrived.
Yeah. So people could sit next to each other again. Sometimes an actor would like sit next to you and talk to the others. Can you explain how you imagined the relationship between the audience and the actors to be? Like, why do we have to sit so close to the stage, or why are we getting involved?
Well, I think when I make a piece of theatre, I want to think about how it feels for you to be in the theatre. So theatre is a civic and emotional kind of space, So all the revolutions in the history of theatre have come from the architecture as well. So in the Greek theatre, for instance, there was a big shift. And then, even in Ibsen's time, this idea of the proscenium is like a letterbox through which you look at private life that otherwise remains hidden. And in Shakespeare's time, the globe really changed a lot, because suddenly the globe was like the cosmos, that on the roof of the globe is the sky, and then there's the sort of, you imagine each side of the stage, which is an inheritance of the medieval theatre, means something different. Heaven, earth, whatever it is, the devil, God, there's a kind of codified meaning in theatre architecture, if you understand that, in the history of theatre.
Yeah.
And even today, in certain rituals and other cultures that are not in Western culture, I guess, there is this sort of relationship to how the space anchors the meaning, or the way the piece is received. And a lot of Western theatre is stuck in a kind of habit of performing in a 19th or even 18th century model. And I'm very interested in understanding that that's our inheritance now, but also trying to work within that and shake it a little bit to the purposes that I'm looking for, which is to say, I don't want the audience and the actors to be separate. We are all people.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the key kind of themes of the play and of my work is that theatre is a way of bringing us into life, not taking us away from it. And too often the kind of register, the style of a performance for me when I go to the theatre is often, regardless of if I enjoy it or not, it always feels somehow that there's a separation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not making a judgment about other people, but like for me, I don't want, whether it's literature or painting or whatever it is, the art that is interesting me at the moment is something that is kind of bringing me closer to the world. Because I think the physical world is sort of disappearing, Everything is becoming completely virtual and imaginary, and I do think that this kind of the real is important to me. What is that? That's the kind of one of the questions that the scenography asks.
Yeah, I really noticed the difference from the very beginning, because I just thought I was like sitting in a movie or something, because I couldn't feel like that there was no border between the audience and the stage. It was really also like how the rhythm of the character was on the stage. Like you could really see that they're not that they're thinking to themselves, and also like not only they don't have to come up and tell the others about themselves to make you understand what's going on, really. So you went to a lot of community centers, you talked to the people in developing the play. And one of the other plays in the Trinity is called Beyond
Caring.
Beyond Caring, right? And it's about temporary workers in a meat factory. Yeah. And I read that you yourself went to work in a temporary employment agency. Yeah. Can you tell me a bit about this experience? Yeah,
I worked a little bit. I mean, the main thing I did was shadow this woman from Latin America and working at night shifts in banks and stuff. And then I worked for an agency, and I was sent out to different things. And still now I get the text messages saying, can you come tomorrow for 2 hours to Heathrow Airport or whatever? And, there is this big, the way that works is that everybody has a phone, and that you get a message saying, can you do 3 hours? To be honest, I worked in some agency like that myself. Really? It's a typical student thing, but I don't think it's like, the conditions aren't as bad as
probably in the UK. I don't know.
Well, it depends on. I mean, look, the situation in the UK with the temp work is that, you know, in 2015 the Conservatives said, I think it was 2015, it might have been earlier actually, they said, we've created 2 million new jobs, but those were all insecure temporary jobs where you couldn't get enough hours to really live because the cost of living is going up so much. So what this means is it gets millions of people stuck in this insecure situation where they don't know when they're going to have any income or anything like that. And you can say like, okay, well, historically that has allowed flexibility or whatever, or there's been a lot of people that live like this that are freelance, but so much of this isn't about freedom or flexibility. It's actually about kind of a state of mind where you are kind of giving yourself and your personal life to the company, to the corporation in some way.
You're not getting paid for the work, you're getting paid for your time.
For your time and in a way, if you turn down a job, it's negative. And there's a constant competition because when you've got insecurity, you can create terrible kind of competition. And I felt that those dynamics of like people meeting in the middle of the night in a meat factory, like strangers meeting, was very powerful for theatre and for the kind of thing I wanted to talk about. And so that's why I made a play about it. But it's as I said, it's a play about insecurity. It's not a play about employment. And insecurity is something that anyone can feel. Yeah. You know, where am I in the right place for myself? Am I valued? Sure. Am I felt? Am I isolated? Why? How can I find my place? This is at the heart of the questions of Beyond Caring.
And your personal experience working in this job?
Well, it's very different because, I mean, you know, I knew I was there only for a very short time. So, but I mean, you know, I remember very clearly once I went to Heathrow to do an interview to start the next day, and a woman had travelled. No one had told them the hours or how long it had to be for, and you travel there and they ask you very personal questions about your motivation to do this job, and you know, can you like kind of express it? Sometimes they even get people to dance to like show that they're good teammates and stuff like And so I remember one woman arrived with like she had travelled, like it took an hour to get there on the bus to get to the interview, and then she arrived there and no one had told her what hours the job was, and she had kids so she couldn't pick them up from school. So they said, "Okay, go home, bye." So then she travelled back home another hour and for another thing, and so there's this constant. I guess that what I'm trying to say is that in the struggle to find a place in society through work, a bigger story can be told about, more generally, about a struggle to find one's place in the world. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm not a documentarist and I'm not interested in political theatre. I'm interested in inner life and how you can tell inner life on the canvas of a broader picture, a broader world view.
Yeah, I think I can really notice that. I mean, you do your research, because I would figure that it would be really hard to bring these kind of extreme stories to the stage without, I don't know, turning everything into some kind of social porn. Yeah. I don't know. And all the plays were very well received in the UK as they were in Vienna. And yeah, I mean, did you get any reactions? Because I think that some influential people, politicians, would go to the National Theatre and go see this play. Did you get anything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we had quite a big impact with both the plays, but particularly with the first one, Love, because when we performed that, it was selected as Thought of the Day from the Radio 4, which is normally a religious thing. And it's the first time a play had featured in that, which is a big honour. You know, it's a very important thing in the UK. So, and you know, I've been lucky that like people have written about my plays outside the culture pages. You know,
yeah,
and that's what I want to do. You know, I aim to do that, and I certainly think when I first did these plays that the form was quite radical, and it allowed a certain shock, I guess. But like, you know, have politicians seen my work? Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I think it's an illusion to think that theatre has got it has the sort of revolutionary power that it had in the 1920s or something like that. In some respects, it's more likely that theatre can provide a richness of experience you said earlier you felt like you're in a movie. I really don't want you to feel that. I want you to feel like you're in life. And like, I think a lot of the problems with the world are like we tell ourselves, storytelling has become the province of the politician. Politicians are very good. I mean, even Obama, who I broadly admire, he was a very good storyteller, and that's why he got elected also. But I mean, a lot of these simple stories that politicians tell, or media tell, or a lot of these shit TV shows tell, are lies. Simple stories are lies. They in my opinion, they kind of delude people about real life and about their own lives, and I don't think that's helpful. I don't think we need stories to help us. Well, maybe we do, but I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in telling stories that give you sentimental feelings. I want deep, complicated, true feelings. And in that respect, the plays have a political power, because that's where real change happens. It's inside you. It's when something travels in you and it shifts the way you see. So, yes, I have a lot of people come up to me after the play and say, I'm now going to volunteer at my local food bank and I'm going to give money to charity. That's all great. But I mean, I'm not doing them as an advert for charity. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I think that if you really live in the world, and in the times that I've been living in, and you've been living in, we've all been living in, and you don't feel that you can... I feel that the stories that I've told are not about poverty. They're about the moral fibre of society. They're about the intimate constitution of the world. And that's what I'm interested in. And those are heroes, those people.
Yeah.
They're not examples of a social ill. For me, they're rich, beautiful characters that are the heroes of our time, because they tell the stories that are emblematic of our struggle, as a society.
Yeah. So you don't think so your plays are not political?
I'm not interested. I don't identify with people that say, we're a political theatre company.
Because then, poverty, social policy, housing problems, precarious working conditions, these are all like very real and political topics also. So they're absolutely real topics, but they are life. Do you see? Whereas, I guess they are political. Let me be clear. But what I resist is this label of political theatre, because I think it reduces things. Okay, that
makes
sense.
People think, okay, it's a play about a social problem. It's really not a play about a social problem. It's a play about Hazel and Beth, two mothers trying to reconcile themselves with their children. That's the story. Or a community trying to hold itself together as it's being torn apart. That's the story. It's not about poverty.
Let's talk about your other play, Love,
Sure.
which is coming in September. It's about two families living in a temporary accommodation. Can you tell me a little bit more about the story?
Sure. So it's about two main families, but also two other people who are actually isolated people. One guy from Syria and one woman from Sudan, who's actually played by Hind Sewaldahab,
she's great.
She's phenomenal. So the story with Hind is that she was not an actor when I met her. She'd never been in a theatre. So she came to the auditions for Love from the Refugee Council in the UK. It's a great organisation that we work with closely.
Wow.
And she'd never been on stage, and we met her, me and my collaborators, we met her and we did an improvisation where she had to walk across a tightrope, imagine a tightrope, to somebody she hadn't seen for a long time. That was the improvisation.
Okay.
And the way she played it, with every fibre of her being, I felt this is somebody who needs theatre deeply.
Yeah, she's a natural.
She's really deeply connected to the theatre art, in my opinion. But yeah, so Love tells the story. It's a Christmas fable in a way, It's a real Christmas love story. And it's the story of two families waiting to know if they will or will not leave the temporary shelter, and these two individuals. And their families thrown together in very cramped conditions as Christmas approaches. And one woman in the play, Emma, is pregnant with a baby who's going to be born around Christmas. And then another woman is Barbara, who's dying and may die around Christmas.
Okay.
And so it's the story about the beginning and the end of life. But it's also a kind of story about finding shelter and as a family. And when when bonds of love are stretched to the extreme, what survives, and what does that teach us about what love is? And I wanted to do a story about love, and I thought that this would be the setting in which to express to write a family play.
Yeah.
So that's the story. It's about one family, a young family who've just arrived, and this older family who's just Colin and his middle-aged man Colin and his mother Barbara, and then both struggling to see how long they will be in this place for.
When did you write the play?
2016. And
was there any occurrence, or why did you choose to write a play about love?
Well, again, I'm always looking for like a situation that can be theatrical. So I came across a report called Christmas Families in B&Bs by a charity called Shelter. And it was like first-person testimony of people who were living in B&Bs. But it wasn't even the report. It was like the raw material for the report that someone just gave me. An amazing man called Bill Rashley, who's an investigations director at Shelter. It's the biggest homelessness charity in the UK. And reading this material, I just thought this is an incredible situation for drama and for like showing the world in a kind of through another angle. And then again, I wanted to write a family play after Beyond Caring, because I kind of, at first I thought, okay, maybe I'll write something about those people from Beyond Caring when they go home. And I was sort of drawn to like, the family drama as the next form for me. I try and have a conversation with the traditions in theatre, so, there's and also I'm British, so I've got quite a big weight of like playwriting, and like the different types of plays that exist. And so, with Beyond Caring, I was doing a kind of work play, which I wasn't like consciously thinking about, Arnold Wesker or people like that, but I was indirectly, I guess that was there. And then for Love, I really wanted to do a family play, but I wanted to do my version of it. And that's what ended up with Love. And then for Faith, Hope and Charity, it was a play about community. Yeah. And that's so I had to find a different way of, for that, Chekhov was very useful.
Very nice. I'm really excited for the play.
Great.
Can I ask you about something? I read that you were already directing at 16.
Yeah, 17.
17.
Was it 16? I can't remember.
And by the way, we also share the same birthday, 24th of April.
No way.
Yeah, we do.
That's a great birthday, huh?
Yeah, I know. The weather's always nice.
Nice time of year. A happy birthday for, when is it? What we know? Oh, next year.
Yeah. Did you always want to make theatre?
Yeah, I mean, theatre for me was like...
If not, what else?
Writing. But I mean, it's, writing, but I needed other people, and I wanted the feeling of life, And I remember when I was 16, I wrote this play, and I was staging it in a very conventional way. It was an adaptation of Marguerite Duras' Moderato Cantabile, and there was like people in a bar scene, and I'd done the bar very realistically on the stage. It was really, really, really boring. And somebody in a break, the producer, who was a kid like me, was just playing the piano in the corner, and then somebody was like fiddling with the lights, so it went onto blue, and then someone was walking across the stage, and suddenly I realised this isn't even a scene from my play, but suddenly the tools of theatre are allowing me to see life with a new intensity. And this deeply moved me, deeply attracted me. And so when I'm looking at the world now, I'm always trying to see it through the prism of theatre. So in a way, that's how that first moment made me realise, like, theatre is a way of like looking at life. Theatre is like teaching us to like really feel life. And there's no accident that the origins of the word theatre are seeing place. And I've said that about 100 times this week. So sorry if I'm repeating myself in every interview I do, but that's kind of destiny when you do more than a few. So that was the first immediate kind of falling in love. But theatre has become like a sort of a lot of my life energy is in theatre. A lot of it's what I'm doing with my life. I'm really trying to give myself to it.
Sure. Excuse me if that's too personal, but I would be really interested in whether your family has a connection to theatre as well. Nothing.
No, I didn't go to theatre at all growing up. My parents were, a little bit when I was a kid in London. Yeah. But I moved to like the countryside near Oxford when I was like younger, I guess like 10. And then growing up, not really. I mean, a few experiences, but some of them were really overwhelming. But not. It wasn't a cultural. My father was a maths teacher, and then he became a kind of lecturer. But he was very ill and died when I was 15. And my mother was looking after him, and And so I was very free to roam, and I was quite a troubled teenager. I sort of kind of got thrown out of my school, asked to leave. It's sort of debatable what exactly was going on there. But yeah, and I started writing poetry with my best friend, who's since gone on to become a rock musician. And we still now kind of have that very nice relationship where we share that desire to, like, I don't know, we used to go to poetry nights and stuff, and that's how I got started in writing. And I was reading a lot and literature, and it kind of made me feel that I was looking for sincerity, which I think a lot of young people do.
Yeah.
And I felt a bit like Holden Caulfield, I felt in Catcher in the Rye, kind of trying to get away from everything that felt phony. And I think that very basically, I think that really helped me. Literature and theatre, I was just really connected me to a feeling of, and I've kind of, I think like a lot of artists, I've kind of kept myself in a dialogue with that version of myself when I was 16. And actually my next works after this trilogy is more and more kind of autobiographical.
Okay.
So it's a totally different approach to theatre that I'm trying to find. I hope it will work. I'll give it my best.
Really excited for that as well. You worked in Russia, Georgia, the Middle East.
Yeah.
What's your connection with Vienna?
None. I've never been here.
So how you like it?
I love it. I mean, it's amazing. It's like, I've always wanted to come to Vienna. I've always looked from afar at the Wiener Festival and like its ideals. It was started after the war to foster understanding of difference through pluridisciplinarity in different forms, and diversity. And I have fallen a little bit in love with the idea of what a festival is. I think it really excites me. I think it suits me as an artist festival, almost maybe more than like a traditional theatre season, because there's something about a festival that is about the uniqueness of an event. Yeah. And I think also like the approach that Christoph Steigmeudler has got here of like, looking for spaces for the works and finding, it's so exciting to think of performing Love in Steinhof, which is a festival, which is which is a theatre in a hospital complex that has a terrible history of being used by the Nazis for euthanasia of children.
Yeah, and it's very far away from the city centre, like where you'd expect theatre to happen.
Yeah, so Steinhof is, it's this space where there's still a functioning hospital in it. And so for me, it's actually opened me up, this experience at Vienna Festival, to something that I really want to do in my work, which is think more and more about like where something is performed and what that means. Now that's very difficult to do for like so many reasons, most of them economic, especially in the context of the UK theatre, which is a theatre where the imagination is quite strangled by economics, and the sense of the event is the province for very few people can get to do that, and you have to have a particular, or that way of thinking is exploited commercially. Yeah. So it's like Punch Drunk, this company that does sort of site-specific things where you can kind of, it's like immersive, but it's really commercial. It's really actually a commercial trick now. So for me, it's a different question. Like, how does place echo something? And so I love Vienna. I'm really, really impressed with it so far. And I like the audiences as well, because I think they know a lot about theatre here. They have a certain understanding of like, they've seen so much, and the level of the work is so high here anyway. So that there's a really deep, I feel like, you kind of got to be on your A game here. Yeah. So yeah, I hope people like my stuff.
I think they will. Yes, so as you mentioned, Love is going to premiere in the Jugendstil Theater am Steinhof on September 2nd. Yeah. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank
today.
You. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, have a great stay in Vienna and...
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, happy birthday to you too.
Das war der Festwochen-Podcast. Wir verabschieden uns aus dem Studio Wunderbar. Die Signation stammt von Ursula Winterauer. Danke fürs Zuhören und bis zum nächsten Mal.